How's it going, everyone? So today we're going to talk more about our next potential Midwest and Northeast snowstorm where we have seen some interesting developments when it comes to the latest runs of the most reliable computer models. So at this point, it's becoming increasingly likely we're going to see some sort of major winter storm in the Midwest and Northeast. I'll say it's almost guaranteed at this point. However, there's still a big amount of uncertainty regarding where exactly the heaviest snow will fall because there are certain factors we need to take a look at. So let's first take a look at the European model. We do have this trough. This Clipper system first moving through the northern Midwest. It should bring some snow showers to portions of potentially South Dakota as well as Minnesota and Wisconsin, but it won't be much. I'll say maybe 2 inches of snowfall if you're lucky in a lot of these areas. It won't be much. There isn't a lot of instability for this system to work with. However, this trough is mainly key, mainly due to the fact that it's going to set the stage for this trough, like I was talking about in my previous video when bringing down that cold air to the United States, enough cold air to where the precipitation will fall in the form of snowfall, but not only that, it'll also enhance the instability for a lot of these areas. But there's still some key questions that I'm gonna go over in a little bit regarding this trough and how it could play a role when it comes to where exactly the heaviest snow falls when it comes to this snowstorm. So continuing to move forward with the forecast, we see that this trough moves through the Sierra mountain ranges as well as the Rocky Mountain ranges, so in the higher elevations of Colorado into Wyoming and portions of Nevada and even the higher elevations of California. Definitely watch out for some heavy snowfall, but eventually this should move into the Midwest, and based on what the latest run of the European model is currently forecasting, it's expecting a significant snowstorm for the southern Great Lakes, more specifically, where it mainly broadens by the time it approaches the Nebraska and Iowa area. That's where we begin to see the snowfall really intensify in those areas, and then we see just a very impactful snow event for much of the Midwest states, including many of the populated cities like Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland is getting involved with the very heavy snowfall, so as northern Indiana. And continuing to move forward with the forecasts, it's also expected to impact the Northeast. Now, there's still questions regarding where exactly the heaviest snow will fall in the Northeast. Right now, the computer models are leaning towards bringing the heaviest snowfall to much of the interior Northeast in the higher elevations of the Northeast, but even the lower, the areas that are in the lower elevations, you should still expect snowfall in the interior Northeast. However, for the Interstate 95 corridor cities, I'm sure you guys have plenty of questions regarding if the snowfall will move close enough to the coast. That still has yet to be seen. Right now, the computer model has been very persistent on the idea that most of the snow is going to be in the interior Northeast, with maybe Boston getting a little bit involved, and maybe New York City, but right now, it's looking a little bit more likely this will be, it's pretty much very likely at this point, it's going to be an interior Northeast threat, while for the coastal Northeast, it's looking a little bit more difficult right now, mainly because the computer models are forecasting a strong amount of ridging. But at the same time, the European model and the GFS model are taking completely different scenarios, which makes me a little bit less confident with this forecast in general. So we can't rule out that possibility that snowfall could move closer to the coastal Northeast cities like Boston and New York City, because there's still a good amount of disagreement regarding the European model. So let me show you guys the European model again. Here we see heavy snowfall throughout the Midwest, and then just remember that as we move into the GFS model scenario, because you're going to see a completely different scenario when it comes to this run. So this 18Z run that just came out a few hours ago, and moving forward, here's that same trough the European model is bringing to the Northeast, and it's pretty much moving towards the same trajectory. It's similarly strength, but there is certainly a key difference when it comes to strength, and the key difference is that in the GFS model scenario, this trough is decently stronger, and that's big because there's another small trough you probably can't see that's able to move a little bit faster, mainly due to how strong this low pressure system is. And in areas where there's a stronger weakness in ridging like we see right here and lower air pressures, smaller low pressure systems tend to gravitate more towards a stronger low pressure system that's nearby. And since this low pressure system is stronger, it merges with this low pressure system as opposed to what the European model is forecasting, where it merges with this, our next potential snowstorm, which is just off the Pacific coast. And what that does is that weakens the ridging significantly to the point where this low pressure system is much more inclined to move further southward due to the weakness in ridging, and that allows us storm trajectory that's much further southward. And the areas that we're experiencing close to, if not over a foot of snow in the northern Midwest, are virtually experiencing no snowfall at all, which is the reason why we see such a big disagreement regarding where exactly the heaviest snow will fall between the two computer models, due to mainly just the strength of this trough, as that'll be key in determining the track of this storm. But moving forward, the GFS model, like I said, we do see some snowfall in Pennsylvania ahead of it, and we still do see a pretty big snowstorm from the northeast. Some snowfall in northern New Jersey and maybe as far south as New York City. But moving forward, we see that this is even more of an interior northeast threat, and this makes it even less likely the coastal northeast in the scenario like this would get involved with heavy snowfall, because while the GFS model expects a weaker amount of ridging initially, it expects it to strengthen pretty rapidly by the time it approaches the northeast, to a point where this moves a lot further northward than what the European model is forecasting by the time it approaches the east coast. So that's another thing we're going to need to pay very close attention to, how strong the ridging will be by the time this approaches the east coast. If it's a little weaker, then that certainly raises a possibility of snowfall for the coastal northeast. But if the ridging is as strong as it is right now with what both the computer models are forecasting, then it'll most likely be a rain event for New York City and the cities further southward. Maybe some snow in Boston, but still, primarily most of the snow would be in the interior northeast. Let me show you guys the height anomalies between the two computer models, show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. And the key that will determine the trajectory as well as the strength of this storm system. So continuing to move forward with the forecast, here's that trough I've been talking about. So we see that there's this small low pressure system right here, and like I said, this low is strong enough to a point where it gravitates towards this area, which weakens the ridging over the Midwest. So that allows us to take a southward trajectory where the Midwest completely misses out on snowfall in a scenario like that. So the strength of this trough will be key. If it's weaker, then we should expect more likely a European model scenario where the heavier snowfall would be in the northern Midwest, where it'll be a very significant snowstorm at that point. But if we were to see the storm as this initial trough as strong as it is right now, then we're less likely to see a major Midwest snowstorm. And then beyond that point, the next key thing will be the amount of ridging. The weaker this ridge is, the more likely we're going to see snowfall along the coast. But if it's stronger, then it'll mainly be an interior northeast snowfall threat. So I'll keep you guys updated once we get once we get a better idea of the strength of this trough. As I'll say, we won't get a good idea until maybe the Monday to Tuesday timeframe, once this trough eventually approaches the northern Midwest, because that's when we'll really get a good idea of the strength of this trough and determine whether this smaller upper level low moves towards this trough or gravitates towards this one. And if it gravitates towards this one, that would enhance the ridging for a more likely shot of a snowstorm to happen for the Midwest, and enhance the instability initially as well. So it'll be a stronger storm for the Midwest. Let me show you guys the European models scenario, where you're going to clearly see that it's expecting a completely different outcome. Well, not completely different, but it's only the one expecting the heavy snowfall throughout the Midwest. So definitely keep that in mind. It's not working right now. Just give me 1 second. There we go. So here's the 12Z run of the European model. So continuing to move forward, Here's that initial trough I was talking about, and you see that this upper level low, instead of gravitating toward this low, gravitates towards that low. So we see a much stronger ridge, more instability, and a major snowstorm for the Midwest. So I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next few days. So stay tuned for further updates to get a better idea of what to expect. However, let's say both of the computer models are completely correct when it comes to the amount of snowfall. At that point, what should we expect when it comes to snowfall? So if we were to continue to move forward with the forecast, we see that the European model is outright expecting a major snowstorm for the Midwest in a scenario like this, where we see a large area of 6 to 12 inches of snowfall. This includes Cleveland, this includes northern Indiana, extending into Detroit as well. Chicago even gets involved with maybe around 3 to 5 inches of snowfall, and even Iowa and northern Missouri could get involved with very heavy snowfall. And as for the Northeast, we see that as of right now, it's primarily in the interior Northeast. We do see the possibility of snowfall in Boston, maybe around 1 to 3 inches. But outside of that, for New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., in a scenario like this, you're not experiencing any snowfall at all. We're going to need to see a pretty drastic shift when it comes to the amount of ridging by the time we approach late this week, approaching the Thanksgiving weekend time frame, to really determine if this snow can move further southward. But as of right now, I'll still say the most likely scenario is that it's going to be more so an interior Northeast threat. But with the amount of uncertainty and disagreements we're seeing with the computer models, I wouldn't completely rule out the snowfall moving southward as well. So I'll certainly keep you guys updated over the next few days, because we're still around 5 days out. A lot could change. So definitely stay tuned. Now let's take a look at the GFS model's snowfall forecast. If this scenario was 100% correct. So moving forward with the forecast, we clearly see no snowfall at all in the Midwest, and pretty much all the snowfall is in the interior Northeast. So we're definitely going to need to keep in watch over the next few days of how these factors will play a role in determining the trajectory and snowfall for a lot of these locations. So stay tuned for more updates over the next few days. And taking a look at the future pattern, I think the most likely scenario is that we're going to be in much colder and potentially snowier than normal conditions for the Northeast as well as Midwest after this potential snowstorm moves through, because it'll allow for strong northwesterly flow that'll persist, and there's going to be a strong weakness in ridging, I'll say, for the late part of November into early December. So let's say you might not experience snowfall in this snowstorm. There easily, I think, could be another possibility of a snowstorm with how cold it likely will be, and with how strong a jet stream dip we're going to see throughout the Midwest and the Northeast. So don't lose your hope for snowfall just yet for a lot of these areas, as there's still certainly going to be a higher possibility with a jet stream dip that's this significant. So stay tuned as I continue to update you guys on any potential snowfall threats in the future. To show you guys this and give you guys a better idea of this Arctic blast, you see that right after this snowstorm moves, it brings a strong northwesterly flow. There isn't a strong ridge to pretty much offset that. So we're going to see much colder than average conditions throughout the Midwest and the Northeast to begin December. So I think there certainly could be new possibilities of snowstorms out of this jet stream dip alone. Right now, we need a little bit more ridging in the eastern United States to allow that instability to create a new snowstorm, but it's certainly still possible for that to happen with a long-term pattern like this. It just is a matter of when really that'll happen and if the timing will be completely correct. So I'll keep you guys updated over the next few days if we do have a new snowstorm threat associated with this polar vortex. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you do enjoy this content. Make sure to like the video if you do enjoy it, and I hope you guys all have a great day.